Excellencies, distinguished speakers, chair and participants, allow me to welcome you all and express my sincere gratitude on behalf of our publisher, Ms. Linda Brady-Hawk, for your participation. Today is Africa Day, the annual commemoration of the 1963 founding of the Organization of African Unity, which is now known as African Union. My name is Kanchi Batra, and it is a special privilege and a great pleasure for us to organize this dialogue titled Africa Matters, a 360-degree global perspective, to reflect on Africa's achievements in the recent past and the way forward for India-Africa relations. Africa is today a decisive actor in international affairs. The Indian and African economies represent two of the world's most dynamic economic growth stories. Africa matters to India because the relations are based on our history of friendship, historical ties, and a sense of deep solidarity. The Diplomatist, along with Indo African Society, has been playing an active role in supporting the growth and enhancement of Indo-African relations through collaborative development initiatives, which are focused on practical solutions. As the relationship between India and Africa continues to grow and engage, with deepening economic ties, the Diplomatist, with the support of the African embassies and high commissions in India, has been working dedicatedly in this sphere. Were it not the physical distancing and bans on gathering imposed by COVID-19 pandemic, May 25th was going to see much celebration. But Africans, along with their brothers and sisters, with their continent at heart, will most probably spend this day reflecting on the ideals that led to the founding of the African Union. As the continent marked the 58th Africa Day amid the COVID-19 pandemic, the Diplomatist joins to celebrate this day and reflect on its efforts and its successes in spurring its relations with India. We are very delighted to share that the permanent mission of the African Union, together with the African Group of Ambassadors in Brussels, in partnership with African Tales Initiative and the Diaspora, is also organizing an online interaction to celebrate this day. At the Diplomatist, we feel honored to be associated with them and praise similar initiatives. Now, I'm truly delighted to welcome Dr. Asif Iqbal, President IETO, as the chair for today's discussion. I would also like to release Diplomatist Special Edition on IETO. We are equally grateful to India Economic Trade Organization and Indian Non-Governmental Trade Association and Advocacy Group. It is a booklet with over 100 pages, which showcases its initiatives undertaken in the last 6 months. IETO has been supporting the countries to bolster industry support for stronger participation in the multilateral trade negotiation processes. This trade and commerce body, having their presence across the globe, is working dedicatedly with an aim to foster international, interconnected perspective so necessary in our modern world. IETO has been providing consultation services to the foreign companies seeking local partners, collaborations for service distribution networks, events, and conferences. This is indeed a praiseworthy initiative. Due to paucity of time, I will not be able to scroll through all the pages, but I will be happy to share the link, the e-link of this document with you all. As I conclude, allow me to leave you with an inspiration from the African philosophy of Ubuntu, a concept in which your sense of self is shaped by the relationships with other people. It is a way of living that begins with the premise that I am only because we are. The concept emphasizes that individuals can only discover their true nature through relationships and interaction with others. Ubuntu promotes the spirit of love, care, tolerance, empathy, and accountability. I thank you all for your kind attention. Over to you, Dr. Iqbal.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, Excellencies. And it is really a wonderful moment for us to be celebrating the Africa Day today online on a webinar. We never thought that we would be doing it online. We were planning some great celebrations in Delhi at the India-Africa Friendship Park We had initiated this 3 months back, but then somehow the situation and the circumstances have brought us all together. However, I think it's a wonderful moment for all of us, and I would like to start wishing our African ambassadors a very happy Africa Day 2021 this year. And our Excellencies, the Indian Ambassador, the Indian High Commissioner in Namibia, and the Director, Mr. Amararam Gujjar, the friendship that India has been able to maintain with Africa. And this Africa Day 2021 comes amid a new challenges on the continent today. And as we are all here fighting this pandemic together, India's friendship with Africa is going to be remaining intact. And I can recall all the colleagues that are here today and who have joined us from different parts of Africa and how they are day to day with the India's celebration of Africa's friendship. This year's theme, I believe, has been the arts, culture, and heritage. These are the levers for building the Africa we want and the Africa that India wants to support. So today is 25th May, and as we commemorate the founding of the Organization of the African Unity, which is a day that is going to provide us an opportunity to recite the political and the socio-economic achievements of the African governments and its citizens. And however, this celebration this year is coming on the back heel of this number of issues, including the COVID-19 pandemic, which has piled up a lot of pressure on global economies, not excluding India or Africa. So everybody, and African economy especially. I can recall my visit just last week. We returned from a successful delegation trip of Zimbabwe, and the Southern African nation was very hospitable and warm to us. Just last year in March, I recall our visit to Namibia, where Excellency Mr. Prashant, the Indian High Commissioner, welcomed us warmly and was a successful delegation. And of course, I have other friends from Ghana who visited Bangalore just 3 months back, and they inaugurated their Ghana Trade Center. And our Tunisian ambassador who's just been in India, welcoming her during this pandemic time. So it is a very, very challenging and a turbulent atmosphere for all of us. And I believe that India's friendship and India's relationship with the countries, including Uganda and the Southern African region and South Africa. It's a very warm, feeling that we all have about our relationship with Africa, and how only last week we can recall the Congo's president, who's also the current head of the African Union, alongside a few African heads of state, concluded the summit in Paris, where they argued, among other issues, about how African economy should grow from 33 billion to 100 billion. This year also sees the African Day, the initiation and the beginning in January 2021 of the African Free Trade Zone, the Continental Free Trade Zone, which we already had a celebration just last month at the Ghana Embassy, the headquarters and the secretariat of the Free Trade Zone. And we are looking forward to see how India is going to align itself in these mechanisms of creating a successful economical chain between these two nations and two countries. So I would like to welcome all excellencies today and cooperate, and we would like to pledge to strengthen these relations in building up these trade and commerce between the African continent and India, and how we would also see the COVID-19 pandemic, the African leaders who wanted to increase vaccination efforts into the continent, which was very, very strongly supported in the initial days by India. And we are happy and thankful for the African nations for standing by India at this time, when we are also coming out of this pandemic in this so-called second wave. So I would like to thank very much for your valuable time today for joining and to be a part of celebrating the Africa National Day. Thank you very much, Kanchi, for putting this up, and thank you, Excellencies. And I look forward for the session this afternoon with you. And Kanchi, should we begin? I would like to begin by inviting Her Excellency, the High Commissioner of Uganda, Her Excellency Ms. Grace Akello, to give her address and tell us about the Uganda-India collaboration and the African Day. Thank you, Excellency.
Is my video visible?
Excellency, Mr. Chairman of our sitting, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Excellency, we can.
Very good. Excellency, the chairperson of the sitting, distinguished Excellency, distinguished heads of mission, ambassadors, Your Excellencies, my brothers and sisters, Madam Kanchi Batra. Now, Mr. Chairman, I should preface my contribution by saying that you yourself used the word, or was it Kanchi who used the word reflection? So what I'm going to give to you today is not the usual statistics about Ugandan economy, how Indians should go there or how we should work together. It's not that, it's a reflection. So if you'll excuse me on that understanding, I'm going to do the old fashioned thing, which I am, because when the OAU was formed in 1963, I was a teenager. I was 13 years old, and here I am now. So I'm very old-fashioned in my way. Therefore, I'm not going to read from a screen. I'm going to read you from a piece of paper, Mr. Chairman and distinguished audience. Now, allow me to share with you my two-way reflection of the topic of our webinar today. The first reading of our topic appears to be an affirmation that the continent of Africa matters. It matters to whoever is asking the question whether or not Africa matters. On closer examination, it makes you wonder why anyone would want to know whether Africa matters. Is there something about Africa which they are concerned about? Is there something that Africa has done or not done so that her actions are assessed on the value or weight in that context? Or is there something that someone has done to Africa and wishes to find out the gravity of an African response? Does Africa matter? Mr. Chairman, in order to answer that critical question, I lay it parallel to some aspects of African history and her current experience. Africa did not matter in the 1400s to 1700s when millions of her population were carted in baskets across the Atlantic in order to create wealth for those who mattered. No. On arrival to their new homes in the new world across the seas, these Africans did not matter despite their energies delivering wealth to their masters. Despite forming the backbone of these economies, Africans could not utter a word in a democratic dispensation where the voice of Africa did not matter. In this world across the Atlantic to date, where the largest population of Africans are outside of the continent, Africans do not matter. Witness today's wanton street killings of her sons and daughters in these parts of the world, because Africa does not matter. Who is asking the question as to whether Africa matters? We cast our eyes and scan her economic history. Is Africa not a mine full of gold, diamonds, stones, and other precious stones? Whose sale would provide the continent with as much investable capital as she needs? Do the deep mines in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, and other African countries not tell a story of the depth of exploitation of the continent? What about the less known exploitation of Democratic Republic of Congo minerals, which have spawned poverty in a country of riches beyond compare? Above her deep mines, Africans live in shanties and mud walled huts. Where has all the wealth gone? Africa does not matter as long as it opens its doors, its way to the mines. Mr. Chairman, I do not wish to continue along this route any further, though I think it is useful to have this aspect of the topic brought out. That is the story of an Africa that has had its agenda set outside the continent, and which therefore could be associated with my first reflection of our webinar today. It's a story that must be told, and that should never be swept under the carpet, Mr. Chairman. Indeed, it cannot be. There are manifestations of this reflection everywhere, in the stunted economic growth of the continent, in the subterfuge which leads to political instability on the continent, in the inhumane treatment of Africans fleeing the consequences of such subterfuge from Libya, Chad, in the outright and brutal killings of Africans in the streets of the civilized world, Mr. Chairman. The second reflection of our topic brings in the more progressive aspect of this current engagement. Africa and India, in Africa and India and in the world. For this reflection, Mr. Chairman, it makes sense to add just one letter to the topic of our discussion today. Therefore, I propose that the topic now reads, African Matters. In this rendition of our topic, we come to the challenge of building a robust and healthy, mutually beneficial relationship with the continent of Africa. We then talk of African matters. We then don't talk only of African matters. We also talk of Indian matters, and indeed world matters that build and sustain Africa while benefiting India and the whole world. In this world, I am therefore not qualified to talk anymore because Africa's sons and daughters driving that continent have come up with 1,001 ideas on how to build and sustain her. They have come up with political, economic, social, and defense and security agenda. Across the continent, what matters to Africa are ways of rolling back years of exploitation of the continent. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, you find a Nigerian vision whose aim is to lift millions out of poverty. This is not much different from the Namibian vision 2030 or the Ethiopian vision of the same time. Ethiopia adopts her vision, a pathway to prosperity with strategic pillars of ensuring quality growth. Africa's national visions are not much different in the overall goals from the economic community visions, such as the East African Community Vision 2050, the ECOWAS vision of the same time, or the SADC vision of the same time. In the regions, the pursuit of economic growth, market integration, infrastructure development, and so on, reflect the perception of unity for stronger economies and ties in the continent.
I don't know what went wrong. I thought you said you saw me initially when we spoke.
I am privileged, Mr. Chairman, to be serving as High Commissioner in a country which has had long and warm bilateral relations with my country.
No, I'm seeing everybody.
Somebody is talking, I don't know.
I just don't know what really happened.
Mr. Chairman, am I safe? Can I continue?
Yeah, please go ahead, Madam. Excellency, you can go ahead.
Yeah. I said, Mr. Chairman, that I am privileged to be serving as a High Commissioner in a country which has had long and warm bilateral relations with my country. India and Uganda have been historical partners long before the opening of the Uganda mission in New Delhi in 1965. India built the Uganda Railway. She helped to found, mold, and sustain the modern Ugandan economy and provided education and training to many of our leaders. India was always the home of ideas for our politicians, with the first Secretary General of Uganda's independent party having been educated here in Delhi University in India. These ties have been reflected over the years by our ministers of information who obtained their training from the Indian Institute of Mass Communications. These ties continue today. The Speaker of our 11th Parliament, elected only yesterday, Mr. Chairman, benefited from Indian parliamentary training. Indian and Ugandan matters are therefore about growth and partnership and mutual support for each other. Mr. Chairman, from the floor of the Parliament of Uganda to Africa, India's visionary leader, Narendra Modi, outlined a policy of African matters, which is the bedrock of our relations. It's a policy of partnership, which is mutually beneficial to Africa as it is to India. It's a policy which resonates with the UN Sustainable Goals. Most importantly, it's a policy which resonates with Africa's own aspirations as spelled out in Agenda 2063. Above all, it's a policy which steers clear of the question whether Africa matters. Prime Minister made it crystal clear that he did not want Africa once again turned into a theater of rival ambitions. Rather, the Indian leader identifies African matters and aims to work with Africa on the development of a relationship built on mutual trust. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Excellency, for the reflection that you have thrown on the India and the Ugandan relationship. And we can recall that the huge, very large number of Indian population is in Uganda, with a community that is into political, economic, commercial, cultural, and scientific. And we are only looking forward for more. And let us hope that the pandemic comes close together too.
I can't wait for it to come. Yes, I would like that to go. Very well.
Excellency, I would like to now invite Excellency Mr. Prashant Agarwal, the High Commissioner of India to Namibia. And thank you so much, Excellency. I still recall your warm welcome to the Indian delegation last year, just before the pandemic started in March, while we were in Namibia for a delegation. And we are only looking forward to your address today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And it's lovely to connect with you once again. Let me compliment you for all the IETO initiatives that you are taking. And we really hope to have you back in Namibia once again, as we discussed, with a very strong business delegation. But congratulations on all that you're doing. Let me also thank Kanchi and the Diplomatist for organizing this very meaningful interaction today. And let me add my warm greetings to my very distinguished panelists and those who are listening on this very happy occasion of Africa Day today. Africa represents such a rich tapestry of people, of cultures, of traditions. And of course, in India, we are all privileged to have a historical, civilizational connect with this continent. The continent which will define the future of humanity. I think it's commonly said that mankind originated from Africa. And I think our future again lies in Africa. So that should be perhaps our guiding spirit. My sister, Her Excellency, the High Commissioner of Uganda, has very aptly laid down the broader framework of our discussion. So I think I will perhaps restrict myself to more on the ground micro issues, with your permission, Chair. But let me just say that what Kanchi mentioned in the beginning about Ubuntu, the spirit of Ubuntu, and I think as we look at the post-COVID scenario, that has to be the guiding principle for all our work and for India-Africa partnership in general. Now, Mr. Chair, what is happening also in this part of the world, like in India and everywhere else, COVID-19 has meant a very severe pressure on the health infrastructure. That is a challenge which we are all facing together. No country has been unaffected by the devastating economic impact of COVID-19. And I think this part of the world is no different from that. If I look at places like Namibia, Namibia has been hugely dependent on tourism sector, largely from Europe, also mining sector. And both of these sectors have seen very severe downturn due to COVID-19 challenges. I was reading a report yesterday that SACU custom receipts. So obviously Namibia, and I see my brother from South Africa is the next speaker. So SACU, the Southern African Custom Union, is a grouping on which provides a lot of revenues, and the receipts have seen again a very serious decline in the past 1 year. So demand has collapsed, and that has impacted all of the countries. This has, of course, also led to a request for more funding, more loans from AFDB, from IMF, or even bilateral loans. Some of the loans are of emergency nature. I think the idea is to provide some liquidity to the economies. And so we are still in this difficult phase. Now, with this to the horizon, I would say that there are 3 or 4 issues which we need to all look together very closely. And I largely focus on economic issues and challenges. The first one would be, it seems like a no-brainer, but I think not enough importance can be attached to having a renewed focus and attention on boosting our health infrastructure. When COVID-19 hit, most of the countries, we all scrambled for, appropriate response measures. And speaking of Namibia, in fact, Namibia has done very well in sort of responding to the challenge. But there are some chronic issues, and I'm very fond of giving these examples with a little bit of, sadness, because yesterday I went to a local pharmacy and I bought a simple antifungal antibacterial tube of betadine, for which I paid equivalent of 900 Indian rupees. I think in India, the same tube perhaps will be available between 15 to 90 rupees. So pharmaceutical products or medical tests, etc. in Africa are available at prices or costs ranging from 10 times to 50 times. And I really see no reason as to why people in Africa need to pay those kind of costs and prices, which are way above, a common man's reach. So I think health infrastructure and our health cooperation really needs to be strengthened together in strengthening this. This can happen through Indian companies which have good expertise in the pharma sector. This is a good time for us to look at specific proposals. So I think among your listeners, I would invite companies from both sides to come up with specific proposals, and we can mix, even while, being ambitious is always very good, but I think maybe we can look at making small beginnings, perhaps making simpler medical equipment or, starting with basic medicines. But I think we really need to start going down that road. So that would be my first point, a renewed focus on health infrastructure. My second point would be that in times of difficulties, especially, I think we go back to our roots, which means, pushing at agriculture and allied industries once again. I think agriculture has always remained a priority, but I think more so in these difficult times. This year, we have been blessed by having adequate rainfall in this part of the world, but persistent drought and water shortages have always been a big challenge. So there is a need for us to collaborate in things like building greenhouses, bringing in technologies like drip irrigation, even, water purification technologies where when the water is somewhat saline, but you purify it up to a certain extent so that it becomes fit for agricultural usage. Now, what we have witnessed is that there is a great need for these kind of collaborations. And I would really encourage experts and companies in this sector to set up on the ground presence. Because many a times we receive trade queries that, we are interested how to go about it. And we do try to do matchmaking, but unless our companies have a physical footprint, however small it may be, I think it is difficult to really reach out to the potential audience. So I think agriculture and allied industries, which will include, of course, livestock rearing and so on, would be a high importance industry. The third point which I would like to make would be that let us not ignore opportunities in the SME sector. Now, what happens is that by and large, the bigger enterprises from both sides in Africa and in India have the necessary resources and wherewithal to engage with each other. But that cannot be said for small entrepreneurs. And what we see in Africa is an explosion of young entrepreneurs who really want to do something, who want to change the status quo. So we have youngsters who approach us saying that we have this very nice ICT solution And when we hear them, these are actually very potent and very useful solutions. But they're looking for venture capitalists. They want seed capital. We are approached by young women who want to start, small industry for feminine hygiene products, which is again in a huge demand, especially for, let's say school-going girls or adolescent girls. So there are a lot of these opportunities, and I think we again need to find ways to connect people and entrepreneurs on both sides. And I think their organizations like IETO do a great job. There's a lot more that can be done. From the High Commission, we act as facilitators, and I know that my brothers and sisters who are there today, they're all doing the same job. And I think we need to sort of give a greater importance to this part. Let me just mention a small thing that almost all these opportunities that come our way, or questions and queries, now we upload almost in real time to the Indian trade portal, which is done by Ministry of Commerce, and we also circulate it to all the industry associations. So I would urge, entrepreneurs to look closely at some of these opportunities. My second last point is it's partly in response to a question posed by Ambassador Anil Vadva. I had the privilege to work with him about how India and Africa can engage in major infrastructure projects. Now, of course, when I was in headquarters, I was looking at our fairly extensive program of extending lines of credit, in which we work with more than 40 African partner countries. And these lines of credit, which India extends at a very sort of concessional term to our African partners as well as other countries, they provide a very good opportunity for major infrastructure projects to be undertaken. Be it a major water supply scheme, or be it sugar mills, or be it hydroelectric power stations and so on. I think our LOC program provides for very good financing options, and I would urge our partners to look at those more closely. But apart from that, we would also encourage partnerships in the PPP mode. And let me add that there are also a lot of opportunities through other mechanisms like the Buyer's Credit Program of Exim Bank, or even opportunities floated by AFDB. So I think those were some opportunities for collaboration in heavy infrastructure areas. And my concluding point would be, again, in response to a question raised as to what is the future of the various trade agreements. And of course, we look at the Pan-African Trade Agreement with great hope and optimism. And we hope that it can be operationalized very quickly. But let me also mention that we have been also discussing an India-SACU preferential trade agreement since quite some time. And it was only in response to COVID-19 that last year we revived these talks after a gap of nearly 10 years. So in last July, we had the sixth round, in which it was agreed that both India and SACU will exchange their fresh proposals. And there were certain timelines which were given. And the Indian side did so, but we are still awaiting the counter proposal from SACU. So I think in these difficult times, trade barriers do no one any good. And I think perhaps as one of the important measures, we could look at revival of these PTA in coming weeks. So I'll conclude here and look forward to further discussions during Q&A session.
Wonderful.
Thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Excellency. That was really insightful. And of course, my visit also last year proved the same thing. Unfortunately, we could not continue because of the pandemic, but hopefully that we'll be able to continue and put these things together while we are there again in Namibia. Thank you, Excellency, so much. May I now invite the High Commissioner to South Africa, His Excellency, Mr. Joel Sibusiso Debele. Excellency, I would like to welcome you. Thank you so much, and wishing you a happy African Day.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Africa Day, and thank you for inviting us to this very important webinar on a very important day. My sister, the High Commissioner of Uganda, has thoroughly covered us on the question that is posed by the paper. He has done it for all of us so that we don't have to go that route. Rather, what I chose to do is to concentrate perhaps on the significance of the day itself, the 25th of May for the continent of Africa. My fellow panelists, convener, moderator, ladies and gentlemen, on this occasion, on behalf of the South African government and the people of South Africa, I wish to convey the solidarity of all South Africans as we follow events in the COVID-19 pandemic in India. Even as we confront our own challenges, in the spirit of Ubuntu, which at its core encompasses compassion and humanity, as South Africa, we reach out to India to express our sharing of your grief, as well as your concern at the trajectory of this unprecedented disaster. I wish India the fortitude, the unity, and the endurance needed to weather the crisis that the COVID-19 pandemic represents. Let me thank you for the invitation extended to the South African High Commission to participate in this webinar, and say that it is a privilege to be sharing inputs and contributions from South Africa's perspective. On this day, 25 May, the continent celebrates Africa Day. The celebration commemorates freedom from the yoke of colonialism and apartheid and signals the anniversary of the formation of the Organization of African Unity in 1963. It also gives the people of Africa an opportunity to acknowledge the continent's progress, reflect on its challenges, and look towards a more prosperous future. Africa Day continues to be an unequivocal assertion of Africa's rejection of colonial and imperialist domination on our continent. This day calls for African countries to cooperate in the struggle against colonialism and neocolonialism. Ghana became the first African country to gain independence and served as an inspiration to other African countries struggling against colonialism and apartheid. Program Director, the annual commemoration of Africa Day marks the founding of the Organization of African Unity in 1963. On 25 May 1963, Africa made history with the foundation of the OAU, the precursor of the African Union. In South Africa, this year's Africa Month is celebrated under the theme, the Year of Arts, Culture and Heritage, in the year of Charlotte Maxeke. Charlotte Maxeke was a pioneering South African woman who was passionate about inclusivity, education, and evangelism. She grasped every opportunity presented to her and accomplished many notable firsts during her lifetime. These include being the first Black South African woman to achieve a Bachelor of Science degree in 1901. Being the first woman to participate in the King's Court under King Sabata of Abatem. Establishing a school at Everton with her husband in 1908. It was called the Wilberforce Institute. Being the only woman who attended and became the founder member of the first African National Congress conference in 1912. Being a co-initiator, organizer, and the first president of the Bantu Women's League, founded in 1918, which would later become the ANC Women's League. Charlotte Maxeke lived to be 68 years old. She died in October 1919. It is within this context that today South Africa dedicates 2021 Africa Day to Comrade Charlotte Maxeke as a pioneer in one of the greatest of human causes, working under extraordinary difficult circumstances to lead the people in the face of prejudice, not only against her race, but against her sex. In South Africa, we refer to Charlotte Maxeke as a mother of Black freedom. This is what she said about African men, and I quote, "We need men who can humble themselves so that the nation may lift them up to be the studs of Africa for future generations." That is what Africa wants. That is the women of Africa are weeping and praying for. It is therefore befitting that today in South Africa, on the Africa Day, we celebrate this visionary. Following on her footsteps, an inspiration in his speech made on the Organization of African Unity in Ouagadougou on 8 June 1998, former President Mandela opined that, and I quote, "The successor generation can and must reaffirm this, that our countries and peoples are bound together by the reality of a common destiny for our continent. That common destiny requires that we should treat the question of peace and stability on our continent as a common challenge," close quote. Responding to Mandela's vision, our generation transformed the Organization of African Unity to African Union in 2002 in Durban. South Africa's President Thabo Mbeki took over the chair of the Organization of African Unity from Zambia's leader Levi Monawasa during the occasion, and during the summit in Durban, the 39-year-old OAU was replaced by the stronger African Union with Thabo Mbeki as the body's first founding chairperson. On the occasion of the passing of the new Constitution of South Africa on the 8th of May 1996, Thabo Mbeki in his "I'm an African" speech said, and I quote, "The evolution of humanity says that Africa reaffirms that she is continuing her rise from the ashes. Whatever the setbacks of the moment, nothing can stop us now. Whatever the difficulties, Africa shall be at peace." In this regard, this day is a call for us Africans to reflect and attempt to answer the question, how far we Africans have come. Fellow panelists, in an attempt to answer these questions, South Africa comes a long way to align itself with the commitment to the values and ideals of Pan-Africanism, solidarity with people of the South, and the need to cooperate with all peace-loving people across the globe in pursuit of shared prosperity and a just, equitable, and rules-based international law. Furthermore, South Africa's vision is premised on recommitting ourselves in support of all governments' intervention to develop a better Africa and a better world. A world when we collectively address old and new challenges we face, such as armed conflict, proliferation of violent extremist groups, climate change, poverty, and now COVID-19 pandemic. Despite challenges that have beset our continent in the last few years, including the current COVID-19 pandemic, Africa has seen some encouraging developments as well. Therefore, to fully capitalize on these developments, it is imperative to implement and operationalize the African Continental Free Trade Area, promote regional integration, and address the issues of peace and security, as well as climate change. The establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which entered into force on the 30th of May 2019, is a key priority of Africa's Agenda 2063 and flagship project for the continent. The AfCFTA is the world's largest single market of over 1.2 billion consumers with a combined GDP of more than 3.4 trillion US dollars, and is poised to stimulate intra-Africa trade and investment. The importance thereof for the prosperity of the region and the continent can therefore not be overemphasized. Regional integration is critical in growing Africa's economies, an enabler of the AfCFTA. That this explains why it is critical pursuit of the continent. Since independence, regional integration has been an integral part of Africa's development strategies to bring together its 55 markets and renews its people's faith in regional integration again. Peace and security development cannot take place in the absence of peace and cannot be sustained if that peace is not durable, inclusive, and established throughout the political process and dialogue. The silencing of the guns initiative by the AU and as envisioned in the Agenda 2063 encompasses the entire peace-building process from conflict prevention, resolution, and management. It is thus not just about active armed conflict, but a comprehensive peace-building project, which the international community must rally behind as the AU leads the development to develop African solution for Africa's problems. South Africa firmly believes that we must promote women, peace, and security agenda, particularly considering critical dynamic nexus between gender, development, and peace and security. This agenda should be mainstreamed in all aspects of peace and security, domestically, in the region, the continent, and the world. To conclude, as President Ramaphosa expressed it, the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in unprecedented levels of unity and cooperation between African countries. It has seen the continent strengthen its ties with the broader international community and global institutions. As we observe the Africa Day, let us deepen our efforts to achieve a sustainable and lasting social and economic recovery for the citizens of Africa. Ours must become a continent that is thriving and prosperous, not one from which its people are dying in an attempt to live. As a country, we are part of Africa, and Africa is part of us. What happens in one part of our country affects us all, so we must work together to recover from the crisis and ensure that our continent grows and thrives. I wish you all a happy Africa Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Excellency. That was really amazing. And I think India and South Africa and our initiatives for waiving IP protections for COVID-19 products have been very well complemented yesterday by the WHO Director General, Mr. Tedros. And I think this is a sign of something that is coming up where India and South Africa have contributed, and people will remember this during the times of COVID. Thank you, Excellency, so much for your valuable address. I would now like to invite Madam Excellency, Ambassador of Tunisia to India, Mrs. Hayat Talbi. And thank you so much, Madam. And we had the privilege of having you just 2 weeks back in another one of our interactions. And I once again invite you to India and wishing you a very happy Africa Day. And thank you so much. And I request you to have your address, please.
Good morning, good afternoon to all colleagues, ambassadors and friends from Africa, but also from India. Good morning, everyone. Hope you are safe and in good health. It's so important. It's a privilege for me and a great pleasure to interact with you and to commemorate, celebrate Africa Day, which provides us with a day of reflection on Africa's achievements, but also challenges, and also to celebrate the population and culture of Africa. Unfortunately, for the second year, we are celebrating Africa Day in the shadow of the coronavirus pandemic. which is swept across the world and let, no part in the continent or in the world untouched. I will maybe ask the same question as my colleague ambassador from Uganda, say why Africa matters. And I will go deep through, this question, why Africa matters, why there are wide range of initiatives towards Africa, just to name few of them: Compact with Africa, European Union, African Union, Think Africa, maybe last one, Prosper Africa, which is an American initiative. Also, to whom Africa will matter. First, I will just give you an idea to talk about maybe the assets of Africa, why Africa matters, and then the challenges that Africa is facing, and also African borders. So that's why they matter to the rest of the world. And they may be some personal reflections about the fields on which we can work with Africa. So Africa matters in terms of its population. With the 55 sovereign countries, projections show that by 2050, the population of Africa will double. And by 2100, it will triple. More than 50% of this population, African population, are young or sometimes well-educated, high-skilled, which form large consumer and labor market also. The continent, African continent also matters because of its economic growth and its economic potential too. Just for the same period, by 2050, the combined economy of African countries will be maybe worth something more than $29 billion altogether, to match them together. So it's 10 much than today. According to the World Bank 2019 doing business index, 6 of 10 the growth, fastest growing economics are in Africa. When we say about economic growth, so we can say also talk about the emergence of middle consumers driven by increase of income per capita and also the steady growing economy. Africa is still gifted with a wealth of natural resources. Africa is a reserve of earth metals essential for digital and carbon-free. The continent has the third of planet's mineral resources, 10% of world's oil reserves, and produces nearly 70% of global diamond. Africa also important because of regional integration. We have, achieved a lot of integration, but still, to do a lot of progress in it. Just to few, of regional integration, we have the African Union, which are celebrating today. We have also Arab Maghreb Union, COMESA, ECOWAS, SINSAD, the African Continental Free Trade area that I hope it will be operational soon. So those are maybe the assets that make Africa, matters for the rest of the world. But also Africa matters because of the challenges, because the inputs of crisis, water crisis, starvation, mass population movement, increase of internal and regional instability can be felt beyond African borders. Just to name a few challenges, climate change, for example. Africa is the most exposed region to the adverse climate change, to the effects of climate change, despite contributing the least of global warming. The impact of climate change in the form of floods or biodiversity extensions, it leads to water crisis, to mass population movement, to flow of refugees, and all those problems, they will be, they will affect also the security and peace in Africa. The region is still, let's say, some crisis, security crisis, And unfortunately, witnessing the emergence of a terrorist group, some of them, they are affiliated with major international terrorist groups, threatening the production and the access to resources. They are threatening also the political stability too. People is the same type. I was mentioning at the beginning that the population is it's at the same time it's a blessing and curse. Why? Because when you don't have a high educated population, when you have a right, I mean, a rate of unemployment, when you have high child mortality, adolescent fertility rates, malnutrition, maternal mortality, unemployment, all of them will, of course, generate problem and the crisis. Like I was mentioning, they can be an easy target also to extremist groups. COVID-19, of course, is an additional challenge and problem to Africa. Africa already is facing many diseases like Ebola, like yellow fever, yellow dengue, malaria, and so on. And of course, COVID-19 has worsened the situation and also has maybe impacted the health of the population, the lives of the population, but also the economic of African countries. I mean, those are maybe the challenges, main of them perhaps. So really, what are the fields on which we have really to focus and to help Africa, I mean, the upswing of Africa, let's say. In my sense, we have really to focus on the agricultural field. Why? Agriculture is the key to providing work first for the hundreds of millions of Africans, because Africa has till now unexploited, I mean, huge lands, productive huge lands. So it will provide employment for many African people. Also, Africa has the least productive agriculture, unless, I mean, despite, I mean, the and of course, when we put in agriculture, we will be dependent of the rest of the world by importing more and more products. So I think we have to work on this field in order to get less dependent to the rest of the world, but also to have food security, sufficient, I mean, food, and of course, it's a large, I mean, a source of wealth to the continent. Of course, agriculture should be maybe modernized. And that's why in this case, we, for example, with India, we can really work on the mechanization and modernization of agriculture. India also, it has good potentials, it has a good experience in this field, and I'm sure that we can really make a good cooperation in this field. This is the first maybe pillar, which is agriculture. The second pillar, in my sense, is investment in capacity building. It's so important to invest on education, on women empowerment in Africa, to foster investment in research, development, innovation, and catch up technologically with the rest of the world, especially in the field of health, renewable energy. For example, in the field of health, I mean, we witness it, all of us, that the countries who are producing vaccines, who are very good, have good potentials in pharmaceutical, in drugs, like India, for example, they can have self-sufficiency. And thanks to India, of course, I mean, it was an exception really to help all over the world with gifting, I mean, vaccines and medicines to all the countries. Unfortunately, we have witnessed or erased vaccines. I mean, many countries, they got isolated and they were only, I mean, looking for this, I mean, population, of course, interest, leaving African countries for their, I mean, for their state. This is the second pillar. And finally, of course, and I agree with all my colleagues, and I'm sure that this is I mean, the best thing is the economic integration with really the African Continental Free Trade Area. It will really give us an opportunity, a platform in order to generate more investment. First, I mean, to help African countries to interact together, to dismantle tariffs and have free, I mean, access to their economies. Because I think Africa, to get, I mean, really its economic development or whatever, it should rely on its potentials first, because Africa is full of very potential. I think it will help a lot really to get this free area operational as soon as possible. How really about mechanisms. So those are the fields, maybe agriculture, capacity building, and economic integration. Maybe to talk about mechanisms, there are a lot of mechanisms. First, as I was mentioning, we have to rely on our really potentials and capacity as Africans together. And then also, we have also to seize the opportunity offered by many countries. Just to mention a few of them, for example, the Indo African Forum Summit is very strategic and very promising, let's say, mechanism, because this, I mean, forum, if you want, of this mechanism, it doesn't focus only on trade and economic and investment. Also focus on the capacity building, education, research, and I think that's really the African continent needs a lot. There's also another mechanism, and it will also help a lot, which is trilateral cooperation between maybe India and, for example, let's mention Tunisia, because as far as I am concerned, of course, so we can make trilateral cooperation between, for example, India, Tunisia, and sub-Saharan African countries, because Tunisia, as you know, is very close geographically to Europe. It has a free trade area with Europe. It has concluded a lot of free trade agreement with Arab countries, with sub-Saharan African countries. Tunisia also have high education population, young population, high skilled workforce. It can be a gateway to Africa, to sub-Saharan African countries. For India, for example, in fields of health, pharmaceutical, maybe industry, in capacity building, in ICT, in infrastructure too. We have some projects, I mean, in Tunisia, for example, just to mention, which is a truck assembly plant, and it can really and then export its products towards Africa. Also, Tunisia is gifted with many infrastructure, let's say, facilities, and it can be really a platform to sub-Saharan African countries for enjoyable. So this is, I mean, maybe some approaches, some ideas in order to really develop the economic and population development of Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Excellency. Thank you very much. It was indeed a very, very elaborate, collaborative proposition. I would like to invite Shri Amraram Gurjarji. I think you got a bit behind time. Sorry, sir, for that. And I would request you to have your address immediately and then take it. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Excellencies, my MEA colleagues, and esteemed audience. At the outset, I would like to thank the Diplomatist, especially Ms. Kachi Batra, to organize this event on Africa Day. I also thank the chair, Dr. Asif Iqbal, President, Indian Economic Trade Organization. Let me begin by congratulating to our all friends, brothers and sisters in Africa on the 58th anniversary of the establishment of African Union. Today, I will touch upon on a few topics of set by the Diplomatist, but my remark would be to highlight India's multifaceted engagement with Africa. It means that Africa matters a lot to us as a partner. As we all know that India has had strong historical ties with Africa since centuries. Over the decades, our ties have become stronger. India's partnership with Africa is based on a consultative model of cooperation responsive to the needs to the African countries and sharing of development experiences. India-Africa relationship has been further strengthened by the presence of strong and vibrant Indian diaspora, business community, and professionals. It is a matter of satisfaction that India's engagement with Africa has been progressing in all spheres, and we are perhaps at the highest point of our relations with Africa in the last 73 years. Mr. Chairman, if we talk about recent past, we have had at the highest level 34 outgoing visits by President, Vice President, and Prime Minister from India to Africa, and more than 100 incoming visits at HOS, HOGs, and ministerial level from Africa to India. This resulted in the elevation of bilateral relations with the African countries to a much higher trajectory. Africa has been made a top priority for India's foreign and economic policy. As Excellency Ambassador of Uganda had mentioned in her speech that India-Africa bilateral engagement was further defined by our Honorable Prime Minister during his address to the Parliament of Uganda in July 2018, while setting out 10 broad guiding principles of India's engagement with Africa, which covers almost all priority areas and sectors. To give push to these broad principles, Government of India decided to open 18 new diplomatic missions in Africa in 2018 to expand its diplomatic footprints in African continent. Out of 18 missions, 13 missions have already been opened and 5 missions will be operational by the end of this year. Mr. Chairman, I want to say that India's foreign policy in the African region is based on 4 pillars: developmental partnership assistance. Under this DPA, we provide concessional loans and grant assistance to our African partners. Second, strengthening trade and investment relations. Third, boosting people-to-people contacts. And fourth is collaboration in defense and maritime security. The development partnership between India and Africa is officially structured around India-Africa Forum Summit called IAFS through African Union. Since the first edition of IAFS in 2008, India-Africa relation has reached that pinnacle during the third edition of IAFS in 2015, which witnessed overwhelming participation from African countries, including 41 African head of governments and head of states level. Our development partnership initiative has expanded in terms of geographical outreach and sectoral coverage. The African continent is the second largest recipient of our overseas assistance. We have reached out to 43 African countries and executed more than 189 developmental projects in almost all sectors. During IFS 3rd, under the developmental partnership assistance, India has committed $10 billion concessional loans line of credits, which are out of which more than USD 6 billion has already been implemented. These projects, Mr. Chairman, I want to also reiterate that India always stands with Africa and considers its valued and trusted partner. It was even reflected during COVID pandemic last year, also when India provided essential medicines, especially hydrochloroquine tablets and other life-saving drugs and medical equipments to our African partners to fight against this pandemic. With regard to one of the today's topic, investing in human capital, I would like to highlight that India has offered 50,000 educational and training scholarship to African students, scholars during the IAFS 3rd, and more than 43,000 scholarship slots has been utilized so far, which is a matter of great satisfaction. In addition to ITEC and ICCR scholarship program, 18 programs in Africa and 6 programs in Africa and 18 programs in India were conducted exclusively for African candidates. Furthermore, Ministry of External Affairs helps African countries in their digital transformation drive through its flagship initiative called E-Vidya Bharati for tele-education and E-Arogya Bharati for telemedicine network project. E-Vidya Bharati and E-Arogya Bharati project was launched in 2019 at African continental level through the implementing agency TCIL. So far, 17 African countries have signed memorandum of understanding with TCIL to become partner countries in this initiative. The project is seen as a digital bridge of knowledge and accessing world-class and affordable healthcare facilities between India and Africa. Under E-Vidya Bharati, so far 3,570 scholarships have been approved since its launch in September 2019. Under this project, I-Learn centers in each of the African country is proposed to be set up. So far, 4 I-Learn centers have already been set up and 20 more I-Learn centers are to be established in the coming months. Now I come to another topic, climate change. Climate change has adverse effects on gains made by decades of economic growth and development. To address the issue of climate change is one of the 10 broad guiding principles of India's engagement with Africa. India is happy to work with Africa to ensure an international climate order, to preserve biodiversity and adopt clean and efficient energy sources. Commitments to climate action are reflected in India's SDG commitments and Africa's Agenda 2063. The most prominent example of the India-Africa Sustainable Development Partnership is reflected in International Solar Alliance, under which India has placed a concessional credit line of around $2 billion to Africa over 5 years for the implementation of grid solar energy projects. African countries will have a significant role in the success of International Solar Alliance. The ISS Secretariat is setting up large-scale solar projects of 500 megawatt each in several African countries. It is also working to build solar water pumping systems in at least 9 African countries and established solar training application and research centers called STARC-C in 6 countries. Mr. Chairman, our partnership is not confined to governments alone, as Africa has emerged as an important trading and investment destination for India. On trade and economic front, India is the 4th largest trading partner for Africa, registering $69.7 billion by trade with Africa during 2018-19 financial year, with an annual increase of 12% from the previous year. It may be noted that trade balance is in Africa's favor. Indian markets remain open to Africa, and an effort is also being made to make it easier and more attractive to trade with India, as evident from trade balance with most of African countries. India has become the 5th largest investor in Africa, with its cumulative investment at $67.8 billion. Sizable investments have been made in manufacturing, financial, insurance, real estate, business services, transport, telecommunication, wholesale and retail trade, etc. in Africa. With regard to accelerating the operationalization of African Continental Free Trade Agreement, I underline the importance of Africa in trade and commerce context that with a collective GDP of over $2.4 trillion and a population of more than 1 billion, Africa offers a great market to the rising economy like India. The African Continental Free Trade Area is not only providing opportunities to foreign countries like India, but also offers platform to the Pan-African private sectors and SMEs to grow global. India wants to be a part of that exciting initiative and to help Africa realizing its full potential as per their priorities in agribusiness, as Excellency has highlighted, to attain self-sufficiency in food security, ICT for narrowing the digital divide, infrastructure development to create conducive and investments-friendly environment, and to improve healthcare and education system. In my view, pharma sector is more promising and relevant in present scenario. Indian pharma firms seriously look at Africa for making their manufacturing hub to take advantage of African Continental Free Trade Agreement. It is worth mentioning that many major economies in African continent continue to improve their business climates and improve their rankings in ease of doing business ranking in the world. As Excellency Ambassador of Tunisia has mentioned, that 2 indicators from the World Bank underline the continent's promising future. Firstly, of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world in 2018, 6 were in Africa. Secondly, in the World Bank's 2019 Doing Business Index, 5 of the 10 most improved countries were in Africa. But Africa is still the long way to go, whilst focusing on improving its infrastructure, especially electricity and transport, which is an impediment in continent in attracting foreign investments. Africa has to exert more efforts in achieving SDGs and African Union's Agenda's 2063 goals. Growing security concern in most of African countries is another challenge which has to be dealt at Pan-African level. The COVID-19 pandemic halts the growth of the world, including the African continents also, which has to be also dealt by African Union at a Pan-African level. Finally, I would like to conclude that Africa is the continent with immense opportunities, and India is happy to work with our African partners to promote African culture, values, and to be a reliable partner in its growth and development to achieve inclusive and sustainable goals of Agenda 2063. Thank you very much, Chairman, for giving me an opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sir Amraramji. That was really insightful. And it is how the MEA, then the ministry, has been working to create these foreign policies. And our friendship with Africa and India is thanks to your efforts that you have been putting in from your side. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I would like to now call Ambassador Ismail Alatis, charge the affairs of the Nigerian High Commission. Thank you so much, sir, for being here, and we are looking forward to your address now.
Thank you very much. The occasion, the Excellencies, Ambassadors, and High Commissioners who have spoken before me, my dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let me also not forget our dear sister, Kanchi Batra, who is the real woman, for this occasion. I mean, the passion she has to coordinate this kind of activities is well known to us in the High Commission here. So I thank you very much for inviting me. And let me, before I go into my sharing my views, convey the solidarity of the Nigerian government and people to India government and people, in this very trying period, to let you know that we are together. We share the grief, we share the aspiration of the victory that is soon to come. On that note, I would like to say that what attracts my attention when I received the invitation and looking at the various topics that were given and which I communicated to Kanchi was the topic Africa is now catching the continent on the upswing. And I want to say that this is apt. It is apt because it describes excellently the situation of Africa in the last few years. Of course, we will not forget that sometime in around 2000, a particular well-known international magazine described Africa as a continent of paradox. Why? Bemoaning the Africans' low space for development, whereas everything that Africa requires to make it a developed or very fast developing continent were seen, you know. And up to today, we still believe that this statement is true, but the only difference here is that it appears that Africa has since woken up. Africa has woken up. We are now focused. The African leaders, they have seen the fact that we have slept for so long a time, and time is now for Africa to, you know, to take its proper position in the committee of a nation. When I say Africa here, I mean to say that Nigeria, my country, is one of these the very important countries in Africa. And of course, I will later talk about the bilateral relation between India and Nigeria, which has always been very, very cordial and really progressive. To buttress the point that I've just made, that Africa used to be, and perhaps is still a land of paradox, I want to say that the fact that we have all that it takes, for example, in Africa, it is believed that Africa is a house to about 90% of a global reserve of cobalt, a very, very important mineral. And then also like 50% of gold, uranium, and about 30%, and then 6% of manganese, 82% of platinum. And then we can continue, you know, the list is a very long one. But the panelists here and every participant here is well known, is well educated in this aspect of the situation of Africa. So I don't want to bother you so much about that. The only point I want to emphasize is that we have what it takes, and we have now come to the realization that we have slept for a very long time, and then we have woken up. And what was described as a continent of hopelessness by a particular magazine again, around 2000, the same magazine came up about 10 years after, a decade after, to describe the same continent as a rising continent. So Africa started rising, and that's about, I think, around 2011. And then 2-3 years after, the same magazine now describes Africa as an aspiring continent. So you can see that the progress of Africa is now being recognized by the analysts, and this is the truth. So this is why I agree that Africa is now, and then it is important for the friends of Africa to come forward and do more, you know, to support Africa so that Africa can realize this aspiration. The African leadership has actually begun, you know, to take concrete steps as far back as when NEPAD, you know, was formed in 2001. Of course, we are all familiar with the efforts that NEPAD was put in place to make, and what the African countries have been able to achieve, you know. And then the basic element of the formation of NEPAD then, as we know, is to place responsibility of development of the continent on its people. And this effort has been going on steadily. You know, if you have been following what is happening in the various African countries. And then towards the proper coordination of the efforts and the processes of development in Africa, Agenda 2063, which virtually everybody that has spoken with before me has alluded to, has also been adopted by the African Union since the 31st of January 2015. The agenda is a strategic framework, and it is rooted in the principle of Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance. It is also the manner and the way that the African leaders have sought, to pursue the continent's socioeconomic and political challenges, which are enormous, really. I listened to Excellency, the ambassador of Tunisia, when she was reeling out all these challenges. So I don't want to bother you so much about it. They are familiar, we're all familiar with them. But the fact that I'm emphasizing here is that African leaders are now ready to go, and they have been making efforts. So as we know that the aspirations of Agenda 2063 includes to have a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. Let me talk a bit about our own idea of this inclusive growth. We know that, progress is all about the economy, and it takes a center stage when you talk about development of any nation or any continent. So we are sure that we need to develop our economy. Take, for example, the federal government of Nigeria under the able leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, since 2015, identified diversification of Nigeria's economy as what we really need. And then a lot has been done along this line. Within 2 years of the administration's assumption of office, we are able, for example, to reduce our rice imports. This was very, very significant. That we now reduce up to 90% of rice import. It is an indication that we are really ready. We want to change the narrative. We want Africa to be seen as a continent that has arrived, So, but the point is that we cannot go it alone. And so we appeal to our friends all over. India, for example, I'm happy to listen to Mr. Prashant and our Igbo director, from the MEA, when they talk, at length about what India has been doing in Africa. But we are saying that India has been doing this, but India must not stop at where it is today. The effort must continue. In Africa, we can feel the presence of, like, for example, China. And most of the time when I interact with Indian friends, they talk about, oh, China is taking over Africa. And I say to them, well, China has a goal. China believes that it has an agenda, and the agenda is to be seen. What you are saying is a testimony to the fact that China is succeeding. And then some will go and say, oh, don't you think that is a debt trap? And I say to people like that, well, it depends on the country, how the leadership of that country is able to manage. Debt cannot be taken out of development process. Every country, at a point in time, whether domestic or international, you have to go, to borrow. But what matters is that when you borrow, what do you put the money you borrow into? And then were you steady in pursuing the agenda to the logical conclusion? I believe that if Africa is able to manage the debt, it shouldn't be a trap, to any African nation. And I dare say that to us in Nigeria, we manage whatever we borrow. So we are not afraid, to go into this kind of alliance with China or any other country. And this is what I'm saying to our friends in India, that India needs to do more. For example, Nigeria and India, we have come a long way. I always like to recall that even before our independence, India was already in Lagos, to have an office, a small office that later, transformed to the High Commission of India in Nigeria today. So we always remember this, and we remember the role that African military has played in developing our military formation for us in Nigeria. So we have a long history of this interaction that has been very, very cordial and very mutually and of mutual interest to both sides. But the point is that India should not rest. we have to continue. We have to take our relation to greater heights, to the next level. So why China has been so successful in Africa, I think, is because China is ready to take risk. For a very long time, many other countries, many other friends of Africa and of Nigeria in particular, they always go with the narrative, oh, there is so much insecurity. Oh, the situation is very bad. But while others are bemoaning insecurity in Africa, Nigeria in particular, China did not consider there's any insecurity. I mean, China will come, bring the money, enter into critical alliances with the government, and then trying to assist Nigeria and, of course, other African countries in developing, especially their infrastructure, which is very, very key into any economic development. You cannot overemphasize the importance of development of infrastructure in any country in the way to economic progress. So this is what China has been doing, and I think this is where India will have to do more. I am aware, of course, we have the line of credit, but I must say that I've been here for 4 years, and I know that we have a lot of challenge getting some of this credit line assessed. So there's need for some relaxation of certain conditions that have made it very, very difficult for this to happen. So let me quickly talk about the arrival of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is an opportunity. It resonates with Agenda 2063 again, and it is believed to be the game changer, having the capacity to transform African economies with a market of over 1.2 billion. So it's an opportunity for the friends of Africa, to come up and take advantage. I think the chairman mentioned this earlier, and I think also Ambassador Prashant also mentioned it. It's very, very important. It's an opportunity to redo and then to see how we can, whatever challenges we have in moving forward, we need to sit down and iron them out and then be able to take advantage of this. Because Africa is set to achieve free movement of people, goods and services across one another's border. This is going to be tremendous. By the time the tariffs, all the barriers are brought down, then Africa will be proud of an Africa trade, an economic relation. And of course, everybody that wants to be a player will have to come. And again, allow me to mention at this junction that though Africa needs investors, and we also want strategic investors, not just any investment. The investment should be strategic. I take, for example, in Nigeria, as you know, that quite a number of medical tourists come from Nigeria to India today. But I tell you that our experience last year with the challenge of coping with the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us a lesson. It has woken us up. So we now know that we need to do a lot in our health sector. And what I have been telling my friends in India here, the people in this sector, is that, look, the way the Nigerian medical tourists have been coming, it won't continue forever. So what you should be thinking about now is how to go to Nigeria to invest, have your presence in Nigeria, in other African countries, because it will not continue. We are also making effort. We want to make sure we have hospitals that can attend to and that can be okay for our people, to take their medical challenges to, and then they won't bother to go anywhere again. So if you move now at this critical stage to establish your presence, you are going to be part of those that are going to take advantage of the situation when it's changed again from what it is today, because like I say, it's not going to continue forever. So it's very, very important. So what we want is this kind of strategic investment. We want people to go, because when you go, you invest there, it is a win-win situation. You benefit, you add value to your money, and then also, apart from the fact that you are there adding to our economy, you provide employment for our people. These are the things that we need so that we can really say that Africa has also arrived. So India again has the technical know-how. I mean, we know that. I mean, India is far ahead of Africa in terms of technological advancement, and we appreciate the fact, just like the director from the MEA put it, that through consultative sort of an arrangement, India has always been there. I cannot also forget the fact that many of our nationals come to India, I mean, in large numbers every year, if not because of pandemic since last year, to attend, to attend some higher institutions there, as a way of building their capacity. So we appreciate this, but we want more of this. And then we believe that whatever India puts on the table, India is going to have value for it. We have been friends, and then we have to continue in this manner, because it is destiny that has brought us together. So we must do everything to protect and to ensure that this kind of alliance continue for the benefit of our peoples. So finally, let me say that the kind of partnership that we want is the one that will drive and be responsive to the need of Africa. It's not the one that will only be one-sided, and then we want to be seen as equal partners. We want to be seen as friends, not as a beggar continent. I think we have passed that stage. We want to see ourselves as being respected, and then in that manner we can move on together. Let me conclude by saying that for us in this High Commission, our door is open every time, and I'm sure other African countries' missions are ready, to go on with whatever discussion that is necessary in order to move our relations further. On this note, I would like to stop and thank you very much for your attention and for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Excellency. No wonder India and Nigeria are big trading partners, and feedback from Nigeria is always something which is very welcoming, and that can build up the necessary ecosystem for building up the intelligence inputs that are needed for making it more and more successful. And we are looking forward to see how we can take this to the next level. I would now like to invite Mr. Ernest Nana Ajay, the Ministry Councillor, Political Economic from the Ghana High Commission. Previously, Ghana and India have been having a lot of good collaboration, and the former ambassador who's just left, the new ambassador is expected, and Mr. Ernest Nana and his team is putting a very good job on connecting the trade with India already. Thank you very much, Mr. Ernest.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity, and let me add my voice to the voices of Your Excellencies and colleagues for the great commendation you've extended to the Diplomatist for organizing this strategic webinar, which I believe that it's very important because of the significance of today. And also let me join my voice to that of heads of missions who have made their submissions earlier in this webinar, and through their submissions have made it clear what Africa was, what Africa is today, and what Africa is going to be in the next few decades we have ahead of us. So in order not to distort the flow, I think that the last submission by His Excellency Ismail, it's a nice segue into my simple and humble reflections that I want to table today as we champion the cause for our dear continent, particularly looking at strategic partnership and strategic engagement with countries like India. Personally, it is a great opportunity for me to mention that the Africa we want and the Africa we desire, it's possible to be created by the people of Africa in collaboration with people of like-minded like India. As a matter of fact, during the first Ministers of African States meeting in Ethiopia in 1963, the agenda that was drafted for that conference of foreign ministers, that agenda included cooperation in areas of economy and social welfare, education, cultural, collective defense, which later translated to become the purpose of the Organization of African Unity, as provided in the Article 2.2 of the AU Charter. And this comes to, bring to the fore that the leaders over time sought to understand that aside the political liberation that was needed for the African continent, we needed to come out of the shackles of economic deprivation, poverty, and circumstances which did not permit Africans to be seen as developing, let alone to be considered countries within Africa as developed. So this agenda was tabled, and I believe strongly that that which brought African leaders together, and even to the extent of most African countries being part of the non-aligned movement, was to form strategic alliances with the East and the West to seek for economic emancipation. Today, we talk of what we call the AFCFTA, which is a product of Pan-Africanism. And as a result of that, the African continent, it's become a place that is sought after. Talking about China's invasion in Africa, it is because Africans have taken the initiative. We believe strongly that the destiny of the continent is in the hands of Africans. We have come to the point that we can do that through strategic collaboration and strategic alliances that we forge with countries like India. We have heard many speakers in many fora, many platforms talk about the fact that we partner in terms of lines of credit. These are great stuff that we do together with India, which I believe strongly that it is not out of place to commend India for that. However, we have an adage in Africa that the best way to teach a child maturity is not to fish for him, but to teach him how to fish. And today, as we commemorate this great day, I want to table some things for us to reflect on, particularly looking at the youth empowerment and empowerment for women in Africa. We have gone past the issue of only looking for FDA, foreign direct investment. Africa, through the Agenda 2063, has established a system that is looking out for direct diaspora investment, where we are able to harness the expertise and the experiences of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora for development, particularly economic development of our continent. And I want to reiterate the fact which has already been mentioned by my superiors and colleagues, that Africa that we want is an Africa that is moving away from exportation of raw materials and becoming a continent that is specializing in value addition, industrial activities, and creating prosperity and creating jobs for our own people. In this enterprise, it is a collective responsibility. And we believe strongly that within Africa, as we forge together as countries, building strategic partnership with countries like India is necessary. So at this point, I would want to say that what we desire as Africans is in our hands. And the fact that the Continental Free Trade Area, which has come about as a result of commitment and work of the leaders of a continent, must work, must be implemented to the advantage of the people of Africa. What can we do as partners? What can we do as brothers? What can we do as friends? It is important for us to understand that very soon, investment and foreign direct investment within Africa might hit its peak. Whatever it is, we are looking for investors. But to what extent can we sustain this thing? As I speak to you today, Ghana has been selected as a hub for Twitter. Going to establish their office in Ghana for the whole of the region. And again, Germany has selected Ghana to be a hub for medical investigations and research. Recently, the European Union has selected Ghana as well. Now, my question is, all these things attest to the fact that there is something good happening in Africa. I want to encourage my brothers and sisters in India that our strong partnership, which existed before independence and after independence, must be continued. We must not renege on our responsibilities of building solid partnership together, where we could share ideas, particularly in the areas of information and communication technology, which we see India as a strong base and as a strong partner that we could collaborate with. The way forward is for us to enhance human skills and human capacity, which will accelerate jobs and create an economic environment that is liberating. The way forward is for us to build capacities of our public and look at strategic financial management that will increase effectiveness and also seek to advance a win-win situation with countries like India. I believe that a common mindset for the African continent is to move away from the dependency of donation and become a continent that is able to utilize resources with the advantage of its people, bringing solid partnership to a meaningful stage in our globalized world. I wish to thank the organizers for this opportunity and also to reiterate that Ghana High Commission, and for that matter, the government of Ghana, is open to enhanced friendship, is open to enhanced collaboration, where we would do our actions that are targeted and would achieve the results that we all desire. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity, and also want to thank all my senior colleagues for this wonderful time we have shared together. Wish each one of us happy Africa's Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ernest. Indeed, Ghana being the Secretariat for the Free Trade Council, the AFCFTA, we are going to looking forward to much more freer trade between India and the region, and to see how we can create some mechanism that can support this movement and making Africa a leader. Thank you. I would now like to call Ambassador Srikumar Manan, former Indian ambassador to Angola, South Sudan, and with his wide experience in other countries, including into the Europe and in Warsaw. So a wide global perspective ambassador, and how the African National Day and how India and African relationships could be reinforced. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Iqbal. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
A very good afternoon to everyone. Namaste and hujambo to our African friends. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to be part of this August panel to share my thoughts on the theme of India-Africa partnership. Specifically, I would like to thank and compliment Ms. Kanchi Batra, business editor of the Diplomatist, for inviting me and for organizing this webinar to commemorate Africa Day. My respectful greetings also to you, our chair, Dr. Asif Iqbal, Excellencies, heads of African and other honorable members of the panel and distinguished participants watching this event today. We all heard with great interest all that the past speakers have mentioned in the last 1 hour, 2 hours that we have been on air. And I'm sure that it will be, that I'll be able to add much. I'm not very sure that I'll be able to add much or say anything different to that, but I'll try my best. So at the outset, let me briefly touch upon Africa's significance in today's world In fact, everyone has spoken very highly of the opportunities in Africa. So let me also add my voice to that. Unlike the misconceptions of the past centuries, something which the first speaker, Ugandan ambassador, had mentioned, the world now does recognize the reality that Africa is not one country, but a continent of 54 resource-rich countries that are culturally, linguistically, and geographically diverse. The global attention to Africa is quite understandable and justified. And from our standpoint, from India's standpoint, there can be no doubt about the potential of Africa. In a wider context, the African continent still contributes to face many developmental challenges at a time when many African nations are battling multiple internal security challenges, including civil war and conflict in several regions. Yet, Africa, despite all these challenges, has come a long way in terms of economic development, more so in the past 2 decades. Several African countries are on a high growth trajectory, as the speakers had mentioned. One of the 10 fastest growing economies, at least 5 of them are in Africa, which Amaram had mentioned earlier. Africa is thus poised to be the next theater of global growth. As the saying goes, it is Afri time now. Africa, clearly endowed with its rich natural resources, is ready to take advantage of its young population and its demographic dividend of human capital. Again, human capital was mentioned earlier by one of the speakers, so I think it's a very important point, a plus point for Africa. A large consumer market comprising of about 1.7 billion population in the 55 countries provides a great scope for consumer and economic and business spending, as well as a fertile ground for attracting huge inward remittances and investments. Now, coming to Agenda 2063, which was mentioned and adopted at the AU Summit in 2015, this actually sets the tone for Africa's march into the future. It seeks to achieve a more prosperous Africa, more vibrant Africa that will be for the future. So an inclusive growth, a sustainable development, embracing Pan-Africanism, something which the Africans have been asking for. Many experts would agree that the Vision 2063 is a viable template for African states to work on developmental plans for the continent's growing youth population. Again, the youth hold the key to Africa's development, I would like to say again. Agenda 2063 targets the scaling up of intra-regional trade by up to 50% by 2050 from the current low of 18%. Now, coming to the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, the future of African countries lies in greater and more effective integration, especially in the domain of economy and trade. A Pan-African economic space provides a much needed leverage for supporting negotiations and economic protection in the international fora. Again, this will empower African nations in the UN and other international forums. Several regional groups and multilateral institutions like the African Union or the African Development Bank have focused on financial, banking, customs, or other developmental priorities, which are part of the efforts in this regard. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement has the potential to be a turning point. And as one of my friends, Srikumar, had mentioned in one of his articles, a game changer for trade within Africa, which will pave the way for removal of barriers to trade, investment, and growth. This will boost intra-African trade and make Africa the largest free trade agreement, free trade area in the world. For India, this development provides a great opportunity, another opportunity to boost and trade and economic ties with Africa. For India, it will be an immense opportunity if India could sign a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement with Africa. India on its own already provides significant market access to several of the least developed countries within Africa. And now coming to India-Africa relations more specifically, I would like to recall what our Prime Minister had said before. African priorities are our priorities. So that very clearly lays the groundwork for our partnership. India's partnership with Africa is based on a model of cooperation which is responsive to the needs of our partners in Africa. Again, something which has been troubling the African partners earlier with regard to other partners of theirs. It is demand-driven and free of conditionalities. It is based on our history of friendship, historical ties, and a sense of deep solidarity with the African ethos. Our initiatives in Africa ensure respect for sovereignty, equality, and territorial integrity of the partner. While we learn from each other's experiences, India has much to offer in terms of expertise and institutional best practices, empowerment, capacity building, and human resource development. So in a nutshell, the India-Africa partnership does open up access to a wide range of sectors in each other's market and support for investments. India sources almost 18% of the crude oil, and also its liquid natural gas requirements, mostly from the African region where I was representing my country in Angola. On the other hand, nearly 20% of our pharmaceuticals exports are for the African continent. Many Indian pharmaceutical companies have set up manufacturing units in Ethiopia, Uganda, Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, and Ghana. Our medicines and state-of-the-art medical equipment such as the Babatron machine for cancer treatment and the other phototherapy units are saving many lives in Africa. It's become quite popular in Africa among the African government and the African people also. There is much untapped potential in promoting our bilateral trade and economic ties, so a lot has to be done again. Part of the reason for the caution shown by businessmen on both sides is that there is enough exposure. There's not enough exposure to each other's changed situation and latest achievements and the progress achieved on both sides. So there is actually a need for both sides to bridge this information gap. African companies need to recognize and become more aware of the reliability factor of engaging with India, so as to tap the vast potential and opportunities that Indian companies offer. This is where bilateral chambers have the capability to play a huge positive and proactive role. There's growing interest and, most importantly, the appetite and intent among the Indian business community to do business with their African counterparts. And I'm sure many of our ambassadors present on this webinar would agree with me that there's a lot of appetite among the Indian businessmen for this part. I'm personally optimistic of seeing growth in this area, and India has also been seeking collaborations, especially in the field of healthcare, pharmaceuticals, agriculture, and other areas. For the entrepreneurs, main sectors of interest are textiles, engineering goods, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, IT and IT-enabled services, polished diamonds and precious stones, especially in Western Africa. Indian entrepreneurs see capital and value-based manufacturing as the next big opportunity in the African region. Again, something which our colleague from Ghana had mentioned, value diversification is something which is important for Africa. Through the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation programs, we provide training to the government officials and other professionals from African countries on a regular basis. The Indian government offers ITEC scholarships annually, which I would not like to elaborate too much on it. Amaram had mentioned earlier on this, so I'll skip that. Having said that, let me also add that India has its own unique and visible presence in Africa, with its own unique niche areas building on historical ties which have evolved into important and robust bilateral partnerships with almost all countries in the African region. So the presence of Indian companies and entities contributes and brings value to these ties with Indian African partners, while contributing to the growth and development of the African people. Well, we're coming to the funding part. Let me also add that the African companies have a wide range of choices to pick from for collaborating with Indian entities which have access to Exim Bank credit lines. So Ambassador Prashant Agarwal had earlier mentioned about bankers credit and all those options. So I think there's a big potential area for both sides to work on. These credit lines could fund major projects for the improvement of infrastructure, such as power substations and electricity transmission lines between cities and towns, especially in rural areas of Africa, As a part of this was replicated in Angola, so I can see the results coming out very well there. These credit lines are also available for investments for mechanization of the agriculture sector. Again, something which Ambassador Agarwal had mentioned earlier. Something like installation, supply and assembly of tractor parts. Other areas of sustainable projects could include treatment of industrial wastewater, desalination plants, etc. So there needs to be focused capacity building and skill development programs which are tailor-made specifically for African conditions and their specific needs. So India is also helping the African countries to bridge the digital gap, which is the Pan-African E-Network project, which Amaram had mentioned earlier. So coming to our cultural interactions under our expanded cultural outreach programs, several festivals of India were held in Africa in the last 4 to 5 years, like in Kenya, Ghana, Tanzania, and Senegal. So these are areas where we can build upon and improve our people-to-people interactions. Our people-centric partnership with Africa has to continue to evolve such much beyond government-to-government interactions to a broader canvas comprising businesses, media, and the civil society. So all in all, our partnership with Africa is a win-win for both sides. And the future bodes well for developing a more robust and strong relationship, something which all our earlier speakers had mentioned about. So let's all work together for the Africa we want, the Africa that we desire. Thank you very much. And before that, I would like to thank Kanchi and the Diplomatist team once again for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. There was really interesting inputs coming from the Indian side, with your experience in countries like South Sudan, Angola, and these areas which require a lot of attention. And I think as we come, there's certain questions and answers, questions that we have got from the audience. But I'll just take some relevant ones which everybody can use it as closing remarks. Something which is very common to all and not specifically to a country. So it's more of sector-wise. So I would take this question which could say, India needs to invest more into Africa, but this is happening very slow in reality. How this process can be accelerated is one question which we could combine as a part of our closing remarks. Then what are the expectations of Africa from India on the education sector? And then we have in Africa's under 20 population is projected to be the continent's largest age cohort by 2070. So it's vital that young people are offered the tools to be successful in a digital first economy. How can we make sure the youth benefit from this industrial revolution? So combining the youth's attention on the industrial part and how fast India can invest into Africa more and more. I think we could summarize this as part of closing remarks from everybody. I would like to begin, Madam High Commissioner of Uganda, if you could throw some light on this. Madam Grace.
Yes, I'm listening to your, I was listening to the last contribution, but I sort of tapered off. I didn't hear your question. Can you repeat it, please?
Yes. Excellency, it's more about the under 20 population, which is projected to be continent's largest age cohort by 2070. So how do we make sure that the youth can benefit from this industrial revolution? And how can India accelerate more investments into Africa, maybe Uganda in this case?
Well, thank you for giving me an opportunity to quote what I left out in my speech. Because in Prime Minister Modi's principles of engagement with Africa, India, he said that as a global engagement in Africa, we must work together to ensure that Africa doesn't once again turn into a rival of ambitions, but becomes a nursery of aspirations for Africa's youth. So it's these aspirations for Africa's youth, which is a recurring theme, not only in India, in Prime Minister's speech, but also in terms of Uganda's own focus on future development. Under Vision 2040, we are looking at Uganda and the transformation of Uganda. And we are looking on different ways to engage the youth in this transformation. And you have to bear in mind that Uganda is still essentially an agricultural country. And even in our steps for industrialization, we are looking at agriculture-led industrialization. And we hope that we can engage the youth of Uganda in the very many different ways that we can embark on this in the agro-industrialization. Agro-processing is a very big thing. And in this, there is any number of things that the youth could be engaged in, whether it is agro-processing for crop agriculture or for animal agriculture. In animal agriculture, the biggest area where we could utilize Indian expertise is your knowledge on the revolution that you carried out here, the green revolution that was carried out in India. You know, that somehow, I do not know why that keeps slipping out of all our discussions, because that should be very, very important. Food security, I think one of my colleague ambassadors brought it out. Food security is a very important thing and it keeps slipping out. However, when you're talking about the youth, we really have to have, we have to think again about agriculture. They're not going to be interested in using the hand hoe to dig the ground all the time. They want some mechanization of agriculture. So that would be one thing. And India has has mechanized agriculture in so many ways. I mean, it's not we are not talking about agricultural farms in Africa, not sort of 20 miles, 5 miles long and 2 miles wide. They are small holdings. And I see a lot of machinery here in India, which could be used for that purpose. Now, when I talk about that, of course, the first step towards this machinery would be to sell it to Uganda. But the most interesting part of it would be if this technology can be produced in Uganda, and we could engage the youth in that. Then we also have the youth who are within agriculture. We have the animal sector, and that animal sector can be taken into dairy and so on and so forth. But you also have a very interesting sector, which is very productive, especially for us women who like handbags and shoes and so on. The leather industry is a prime area for investing youth energies. And I don't think that needs so much training. And so then there's, I think those are the two areas. There are other areas. Mining probably would be too far-fetched at this stage, but agriculture, the agricultural sector of the economy and our industrialization of that sector can draw in a lot of youth to and India has not only the knowledge of the technologies, but can also help us to produce them on the ground in Africa. I know that in Uganda we have, Makerere University has a school of agriculture, and within that school of agriculture, there is a mechanization unit, which is producing agricultural machinery. So that would be an area where we really have Indian expertise to help us to produce simple machinery, which can turn agriculture around from being a back-breaking activity to something which is productive and valuable. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Excellency, I agree with you. And I think those points are quite apt from the Ugandan point of view. And it's common for other parts of Africa as well. Thank you so much, Excellency. Excellency Prashant Agarwal, would you like to put some light on those
Thank you so much,
points?
I think everything we do, we are very clear that unless our, relationships, our partnerships are future and really benefit the youth, we are not going very far. So that is the highest priority. In terms of educational sort of exchanges, I've tried to respond on the chat, so I have not delved much into it. But in terms of how investments can be promoted, I would like to add one or two things over there. And I think investment promotion is a two-way street. So to the Indian companies and to the Indian entities, I would urge that they should really look at all opportunities and not just the biggest ones, I would say, because I think they need to come here. They need to establish, their presence on the ground, gain experience, and then, sort of take it on from there. I think one very significant advantage that India has is that there is no trust deficit. So I think they need to build on that. But at the same time, I would also urge that there be clarity on two aspects. One is that, if we say that Indian companies should come to, let's say, a particular country A or place B or so on, there should be a a good deal of clarity on why these companies should come to this particular destination. I think detailing would be important. I think we far too often talk in very general terms that, okay, let's have investments here because of, A, B, C, or D. But I think we don't often have great details available. So I think a clear enunciation of, let's say, quote unquote, incentives for, investors would be very useful. The other thing I would also like to mention is that at times the public procurement policies are structured in a way. There are reasons why they're structured that way, because of historical reasons, because of the reasons for empowering the disadvantaged. So we agree with some of those procurement policies, but at times some of the provisions work in a way that actually hinder companies from to come and participate in opportunities here. So we have a regular dialogue with our partners over here as to perhaps how those investments can be facilitated. I think that's also again very important, because at times we find that even the original manufacturers, they are disqualified or debarred from participating in those opportunities. So I think it's a two-way street. We need to look at both ends. Thank you
so much, Excellency. Excellency, Mr. Joel Sibusiso from South Africa, would you like to put some light on these points? And perhaps maybe Madam Mrs. Hayat Talvi, would you like to?
I think we're broadly covered. It's been an excellent inputs. But perhaps just to emphasize that in Africa, we are coming up with a very youthful population. Almost people, 80% of the people are going to be under 30.
Yeah.
And there is a great potential there, particularly with working with a country like India, because the ICT technology is much more amenable and much more natural to use amongst young people. And that is already the future. The future is not pick and shovel anymore. The future is not pick and shovel anymore. It is ICT, and India has got great expertise in this, and its natural working with Africa will put both continents in very, very good state to develop the youth in terms of ICT.
Right. Great, wonderful, Excellency. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellency, Madam Hayat from Tunisia, would you like to throw some light, Madam? I think we'll ask Mr. Ambassador Ismail from Nigerian High Commission. Excellency, these points, would you like to have some of your opinions, Excellency?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Well, I think just for me to reiterate the point that I made during my presentation,
yeah.
That, we look forward to India. We want India to really, do more. And like my colleague from the Ghana High Commission eventually emphasized, we want a situation where value is added to whatever products that or produce that we have in Africa. The time is gone by when people will think that they can just come, take the raw material and go. Africa doesn't want that any longer, and that's why I emphasize that what we want now is strategic investment. Yes, India has been trying. I know for example, in Nigeria, in the power sector, India has been really very helpful. We have taken advantage of the line of credit, at least in 2 states in Nigeria, Kaduna and Enugu, I know, and we are helping. I mean, this is helping us in our attempt to electrify our rural areas. So we want more of this, and then generally to even private investors we want them to come to. Currently, we have over 150 Indian companies operating in Nigeria, and it's been very good. I always like to cite the example of the Olam farm. Olam farm that started in Nigeria is now everywhere. So I say that Nigeria is the gateway to African economy, not just Africa. Olam has proven that if you are in Nigeria, from Nigeria, you can spread your tentacle to anywhere in the world. And so this is the kind of thing we want. We want them to come with this kind of mind that we really want to make a positive impact on the people of the continent. So whichever country they choose to go. So we want India to do more. And in the area of technological advancement, like I said, India is far ahead of Africa. And we appreciate the fact that India has been sharing, but we want more. African youth are not really doing that yet. They are ready. It's just the enabling environment. As you can see, for everybody, we know that many African youth are making wave in America, in UK. You know, they have a lot of innovations. You know, that have proven to the world that we are not doing that as in Africa. It's just that for a very long time, maybe we are sleeping, and of course, maybe because of historical reason. But now it is a different ball game, and then we want everybody to arise to this reality. And for India as a very special friend, we want to share more, from what India has. I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Excellency, for that. And I think maybe Ambassador Srikumar Manan can sum it up.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Africa with its young population is ready to build on and take advantage of its human capital. So obviously, as someone had said, Africa, instead of becoming a theater of competition for other big players, it should become more of a nursery for its youth. So the youth are the future of a country, and that's where India's time-tested success in offering annual ITEC and ICCR scholarships to the African youth becomes more significant. Something which would create a groundswell of skill and talent among the African population that prepares African countries to prepare for their inevitable role in moving towards rapid industrialization and development in the future. So the future is for Africa, and the future of the youth in Africa is also very bright. So I think countries like India need to take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. It was indeed an amazing, insightful session on our India-Africa friendship and relationships. And I want to thank all the excellencies for being there. And Kanchi, can I invite you to come and give a formal vote of thanks, please?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Iqbal. What the speakers discussed today is indeed noteworthy and insightful. Great achievements have been made in the development of India-Africa relations, but much needs to be done. The celebration of Africa Day has today given us the opportunity to promote African unity, deeper regional integration, and recommit Africa to a common destiny. To the expert panel of speakers, I thank you once again on behalf of our publisher, Ms. Linda Brady-Hawk. Thank you for your contribution to this discussion. We look forward to having you with us in our future events as well. To all the participants, I thank you for your attendance. We look forward to bringing you even more such insightful discussions. I thank you all and wish you all a very happy Africa Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Excellencies.